we got an email from the Canadian Space Agency. It could have been a spam. I could have been sending money to like a Nigerian prince. And the last kind of few tests were sending it to the astronauts to see if they actually liked it.
How was that feeling, like being there, seeing, when Artemis went up in the air?
I can get anyone to buy anything once. Can we get them to buy it twice? Because we're going to be in Walmart in August. We got phone calls from Global, CP24, CBC. We got to go on all these things. As I'm sitting there with my phone in my pocket, it's just going ding, ding, ding. Orders are coming in
Carson,
to our website.
Thanks for coming on the Shop to Scale podcast, man.
Dude, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Amazing. First off, going to show the Goldies for anyone that's on audio. I'm basically showing the Carson's product. It is, I will say one thing, like so I bought this at a Sobeys, which for anyone that's not in Canada, it's a major retailer in Canada.
Yeah.
When I walk past the cereal aisle,
Yeah.
like your guys' product like genuinely stands out in a good way. Like it genuinely caught my attention. And the reason I actually reached out to you was because like your product caught my attention. Because like I was going through like it was Reese's Puffs, Lucky Charms, basically. Yeah. And then I go through like this very small, like healthy aisle for cereal or oatmeal. Yeah. And then this definitely stood out, my friend.
Well, that's good. Because I mean, that's good to hear because I'm the one who does all the designs for everything you see that's out there. And, as a designer and a creative, that's like, I'm constantly second guessing like all the things I do. I always want to improve it. I always want to rejig things. I always want to change the messaging. And then people are like, yeah, no, I love this. And I'm like, but I see this one thing. I want to fix that for the next kind of order that we place. And that's a good thing about, being a small business is that we can make those little changes, right? Like, obviously you don't want to, we get our lenses on and we get tunnel vision. And I look at something, let's say when I'm designing it for hours after hours, that eventually I'm just like numb to it. So it's hard to be critical of something that you're like, that you see every 2 seconds. So, when it sits out there for a while, when it's out there in the wild and time passes and we've already gone to print and things have happened, then I'm able to kind of relook at it like with a critical eye. I'm like, okay, that looks good, but I think like we can probably tweak something to make it even better.
I mean, that's probably what led to get success. You're always looking to improve and all that. I guess that's
for sure
one of the traits of entrepreneurship.
Totally.
But Carson, looking back at your background, running education programs, I think DJ work, events as well. So just kind of talk me through, I guess, what made you look at like the cereal space and be like, this is the space that we want to basically go and target?
Yeah, I mean, there's a story here. I've done a lot in my quote unquote work life since I started working. Like, I mean, my first job ever was me working at like a Licks restaurant. I don't know if you remember those restaurants back in the day. If I'm not sure who's listening out there, if they're Canadian or not, but it was a big like Canadian kind of chain of burgers and fries and stuff. So that's when I started working at the age of 15, basically still in high school, young in high school, and just wanting to work, make money, buy my own things, live my life. And I haven't stopped since. And so taking you back to the beginning, if we're going to talk, I've always DJed. So that's like the consistent part of my life. I started DJing in the private events world, mostly at the age of like 16 as well, basically around the same time I worked at Licks. And I had to sing, by the way, on the grill. Like, have you ever been to a Licks? Are there any around still?
I unfortunately am not, but
okay. There's probably like one left, I think, maybe one. And everybody on the grill, like flipping burgers, had to sing like these reworked songs of like classic 50 tunes, but all about, their hamburgers and their chicken burgers. I still remember them. I won't sing it today, but maybe another time. But I started DJing at a young age. It was like really popular in like my group of friends, my high school. It was something that, many people got into, and I haven't stopped since. Like, I still work on weekends. I'm working this weekend. I've always done it. I always love it. It's just another outlet for me from a creativity standpoint to express myself and have some fun and honestly stay active, because it's a very like upbeat, active environment. There's lots of, it's not just like mixing records, but it's hosting and it's dancing and it's a whole show. So I've always done that. But as I've been doing that, I've always kind of tried to start my own thing, whether it was, this program called Grow. So, back at the, I guess, tail end of university, I've always worked with kids. I've always worked in summer camps. A lot of my family are in education, and I wanted to kind of find my path in that world as well. So I created like this character building and bully prevention program, and we went into schools, almost like a like an in-school field trip, basically. Like it happened during school hours, and we would go in and run like interactive kind of team building activities that focused on, the different types of character traits, whether it's being respectful or empathetic or, honesty or integrity. And I did that for quite a while, and we saw hundreds of thousands of kids every year. I did it for about 10 years. And it seems to me now that I'm at this point in my life that every 10 years I kind of get interested in doing something completely different. And so those 10 years kind of came to an end. I ended up kind of selling the company to my employees who ran it for another couple of years. But, as most businesses do, without the brainchild, so to speak. And I have no ego when it comes to this stuff, but I guess that's the only way to put it. It started to fizzle out and it changed and it kind of just disappeared. So that was a big part of it. Then you're right, I moved into the event world. And so I've always been DJing, but I never had my own event company. And I wanted to do events from like a different perspective where we'd build like custom environments and cool activations and do a lot of stuff with like data collection and analytics for other brands. And so, yes, we did a lot in the private event world, but we also did most of our work in the kind of corporate event world. And so we got to work with like amazing brands. Like we got to work with Diageo and Meta and just like makeup brands, clothing brands, like a lot of really Google, like just really cool stuff. We did a lot of events at Drake's house, which I think is probably the most impressive part of it.
Wow.
I was there like every like 2 weeks for like a year at one point. It was nuts.
Incredible. Wow.
Very overwhelming. So, yeah, and so I ran that for about 10 years. And during that time is kind of when Goldy's happened, right? The pandemic hit, that world shut down completely. And, when we talk about the pandemic, especially in Canada, we look at all the different industries that were affected by it. And I can honestly say that the events industry was probably affected the most. Not in a safety way. Like obviously like the medical community, like they're the front runners, or sorry, the first line of everything about when it comes to kind of maintaining it and containing it. But we were closed the longest and we couldn't do events for the longest in Canada. And so during that time, I did a lot of online virtual events, which is why I have this equipment here because it just kind of stayed. But I also started thinking like just creatively, like what else can I do if this doesn't come back, if the world never returns to what it was? And it seemed like it wasn't going to at one point. Like
100%.
right? Like it felt all lost. What else do I want to do? And for a long time, I've always had this like, the grass is greener on the other side kind of situation. I'm like, I've always been in the service industry, whether it was grow, whether it was the events world. It's always been like me providing a service because of a set of skills I may have. And that was great. But I always like envied the people that had like products or something that they can sell or something that they can, you can acquire a customer once. And obviously you need to maintain that relationship and not lose it, which is obviously probably one of the hardest parts of a relationship. But once you acquire them, they should be yours and you can have them for a lifetime versus like an event, right? I do your wedding. You're likely only getting married once, likely, maybe twice, but once. And
It's
then
funny you mentioned
on.
that. I'm getting married in about 6 months. So.
Okay, well, if you need a DJ, I'm ready. I do a lot of weddings. And so I really wanted to have a product. And so I had this idea like a long time ago about like this Goldy's concept, this Goldilocks. I've always been a fan of like magical storytelling. I'm a huge Disney like fanatic, like in my own right. And I just love the idea of kind of storytelling and products and connection and all that. And I couldn't believe that there wasn't a product out there like a porridge or an oatmeal that was like Goldilocks themed. Like it's in the public domain. Why hasn't someone dove into this world yet? And the original idea started as like an actual like brick and mortar retail store. Like it would be cool to have like, do you remember the store David's Tea?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So like, and now they're online mostly. They don't have a lot of brick and mortar stores, but that idea for the oatmeal world made a lot of sense to me. Imagine walking in and they had all these beautiful like oatmeal mixes on the wall. You can smell all the different scents. They can package it up and you can get like your own little packet of oatmeal to take home, or they can make it for you right there. So very much like David's Tea, but like high end, delicious porridges, oatmeals, breakfasts, not breakfasts. I say that often. It's weird because my buddy told me once he used to work at Starbucks and he's like, surprisingly, our oatmeal is one of our best sellers. And so I'm like, oh, there should be a store dedicated to just that. That could be really, really cool. So obviously that didn't happen. The pandemic was like made the idea of a retail store, a brick and mortar store seem insane. And so as my event world was kind of coming to an end, I had a conversation with my best friend, who's now my partner, Schreiber, and he had availability as well to work on something. He recently exited his family's business. It was in a similar space that we're in now, not in food, but in candles. They had candles for the hospitality industry, and he wasn't doing anything. And so I said, "Listen, I have this idea. I don't see it as a retail store. I can see it being a really cool product that we can sell online or whatever. You want to do this together?" And he's like, "Listen, if the idea and the branding's amazing, because that's my focus, but if the numbers make sense and it tastes delicious and like we're excited about the actual like product, then let's do it." And so I went to his house one day. I made him all the different concoctions I made by just, and this is like pre-AI, so I couldn't even just like give me the best oatmeal recipe. I had to like experiment and test it with my kids and all that stuff. And I brought it over and he loved it, and we just got to work. And so that was like the part one of the idea. But part two was, over this time, I got married, had kids, and saw what I was feeding my kids, right? And that's the main motivation, I think, through it all, is that I wanted something that was solving the problem for myself and for Schreiber, who also has 3 kids. We wanted something that was quick and convenient, because obviously you can have healthy meals, but often it comes at a price of preparation, multiple ingredients, often taste. So we needed something that was quick and convenient, because we like to get out the door fast in the morning, but it had to be healthy, and it also had to taste good. Good enough to not only I would enjoy, because I liked it from the beginning, but my kids had to enjoy, and they have a lot more of a strict bench line when it comes to things that they want to eat. So if I can solve all those 3 things, I know I have something that other, young millennial families would be interested in. What athletes and people who are training, it's not just for families, of course. It needs to satisfy, anyone who's looking for better for you products that are just simple, right? It's not hard to do. It was just, what ingredients do we include that people A, want, and B, can understand, right? There's so many times you pick up a box, and even if it's a healthy option, or if it's not even like a necessarily like bad ingredient, you don't even know what it is. You need like a dictionary just to look it up. So we got to work, and now 3 years and a bit later, here we are.
Here we are. Because I was looking at the macros, and like the macros look really good on this. So I was gonna point that out, that like
Yeah.
it seems like a very, very high quality, but a simple product that, like, as you mentioned, like I'm not reading something crazy on the pack, for example.
Totally, for sure. Yeah, like I think that a lot of that was somewhat accidental, but that's only because we chose great ingredients, Canadian ingredients wherever we could, non-GMO, like just the best of everything. And if we can, we had this kind of checklist of things we wanted to see on the output, and then we would put the best of everything in and see what the cost output would be. And if they matched, and then we mixed together, like, so if the nutritional output was right, and then the cost output was right, then the last step was tasting it. And if it still tasted good after those 2 things, it got moved down the line. So we had multiple formulations for every one of our products. We had products that don't even exist anymore, but we had to do, there's a million iterations to get to where we are now. And we're still iterating. We're still trying to do better. We're still trying to improve all the time.
And then when you and your partner Schreiber, you guys figured out that these were the flavors that we like, these are the ones that were the best, did you then go to like a co-packer manufacturer, like, and just give them those flavors?
No, it actually, so the first product line we released was a Super Seed cereal blend. So not even the oatmeal yet, because we wanted to be really different. And like, we thought oatmeal was a big market, kind of controlled by, a couple big players. So we're like, let's just do something that no one else is doing, really. So we started with the Super Seed blend, and we had like 6 or 7 flavors. And we got into this program called Venture Park, which is partially owned or controlled by Arlene Dickinson. And they have different types of streams and education and programs that they offer. But what they offered that we really need the most was a commercial kitchen. So at first, this kitchen was our hub. Me and Schreiber would go there. I was still working on my other job at the time. So we would go after work from like 6 p.m. to like 2 a.m. And we would be in a commercial kitchen where we can mix properly. We can follow all the rules and regulations and HACCP and all these things that comes with like manufacturing food in a safe way, in an environment that, was taking care of us. And so that's where we did it for at least a year or two. We were packing it ourselves, and I have like photos of us like in there, and it was fun. Like we got certain machines in there put in there for us, and we would listen to music, and we would go for dinner, like take breaks and go next door to a restaurant that was amazing there, and like it was a fun time for us. But it was totally grueling, and obviously it wasn't scalable, but it got us into a lot of doors at the beginning that we otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do, because everything else is, co-packing. There's a lot of, which we're doing now, but there's a lot of like MOQs and money that needs to be laid out and, ahead of time. And when you're just trying a product or you're just trying to get it into the market, it's impossible to co-pack off the top unless you have a big, unless you can fund it yourself, which we couldn't, or you had some sort of investment, which we didn't. So we were bootstrapping it right from the beginning, like white coats, beard nets, hair nets, all this different, hand washing stations. Like we followed everything. And I even took like a course on like food safety, which, to this day, my family or friends call me and they're like, hey, well, I left the steak out for an hour and a half. Is it still safe to eat? I'm like, okay, it's 2 hours in the danger zone. Like I give them all the tips. So I learned a lot as I went because like I'm a student of education. Like I just want to learn and know everything.
And then when, let's say, the first initial like retail door that you got into, kind of walk me through that. Like, what was that first conversation like? Because that's something that's always it's always something that's like a milestone for any brand, that first couple of conversations, I guess.
Yeah, so I can't, I mean, I should remember, but I think that obviously we probably got into a lot of independence at first, stores that were, Coco Market, and there's a ton of them. And I don't want to leave anyone out that probably supported us at the beginning, but it was a conversation with the store owner. And we're like, the rules and restrictions there are easier to get into. They don't need a million codes. They don't need all these things. Obviously, we made sure, like, from a safety perspective, like what we were giving them was proper. From a nutritional panel, it was right. From a packaging, like everything was, clean and done properly, but there's less red tape because there's less conversations. There's no mods or planograms or things like that. They're like, okay, I have some space. Let's put it here. So that stuff was relatively easy because I think that we had people resonated with what we were doing at first. Like we had a cool brand. Both Schreiber and myself were obviously very passionate about talking about the product, and it was low risk, right? You buy a case, it's $60. It's there's not really much that can go wrong. But Sobeys was probably like our first major grocer that gave us a chance. So much so that Sherry Evans, who runs this Ontario Sobeys local program, gave us an approval to come be a part of it even before our product was launched. She's connected to Venture Kitchen, and so they often brought in, they had special nights where they brought in industry or they had meetings set up. And the gentleman who was running, his name's Eric Wood, I'll give him a shout out. He was running Venture at that time, really like got along with us, believed in what we were doing, liked our product, and set us up a meeting with Sherry at Venture without really, knowing if we were going to succeed or fail. And so when she met with us, we made a deck, we did all these things, like, we pitched whatever we could. And she's like, yeah, this sounds really good. When it's ready, we'll take it. And we got it ready and she took it. And so it was pretty exciting. We even celebrated by, I remember I made a video. I went into like a Sobeys and tried to like offer our product to people. And the first person who said yes, I bought their whole grocery cart. And so that was a fun thing. We got a lot of no's, which was really funny too for socials. But yeah, and it's just been kind of growing since there. And, as we go through this, we learn a lot, right? We learn what we need and what we don't need. And since then, we've gotten distribution and brokers and all the things that you need to have to kind of be successful in this crazy CPG world, which I had no clue as when I started.
Definitely. And on that point, like with let's say the Sobeys conversation, what is, I guess, one misconception or something that sometimes surprises founders when they're going into like that initial conversation with a major retailer that you see they constantly trip up on?
I mean, from what I've seen, I think a lot of people don't understand their pricing models. I think that is a big part of it. It's like, a lot of times we see, I've spoken to brands and great brands with great products who have a great, amazing item that they sell, and they're in like farmers markets and it costs them $3 to make and they sell it for $6 and they're like, oh, I doubled my money. It's great. But, once you start speaking to these professionals in this world, whether it's grocery stores or distributors or brokers, there's all these like phases along the way, this food chain of how much you are priced for, how much they're going to sell for, how much it's going to go into retail for, what's it going to be rolled back to, what are the promos, what are the MCBs. And so there's all these things. And honestly, like those elements, I would not have been able to solve myself or understand. Schreiber really is the operations, numbers, logistics guy. We also have an amazing, new vice president of sales for us who was also in CPG before he came to us, who gets that world too. And so without that balance and that understanding, we probably would have made a lot more mistakes at the beginning. I mean, we definitely made a lot of mistakes, but I think we would have made a lot more mistakes at the beginning if we didn't understand that distribution channel, which again, I attest to Schreiber because he was in that world before, in the candle world, selling it to hotels, restaurants across, Canada and the States. So he got it before I had to figure it out.
100%, because whether it's candles or whether it's oatmeal, like in the end, the distribution structure tends to have similarities, and I'm sure that was a huge
For sure.
benefit. And I guess on the point of maybe the branding aspect of things,
Yeah.
what is something that you recommend that when, let's say I'm a new, because normally we have a lot of people that are listening that are looking to launch a brand in the next 6
Yeah.
months, 8 months, 12 months. They're kind of playing around with AI because now they have AI to
Yeah.
like figure out like what their packaging looks like, what are all their marketing assets going to look like as well. So maybe what is some advice that you have for people that are kind of in that stage that are playing around with their packaging, playing around with their marketing assets at the start?
Think like I mean, this is kind of counter to what I was saying when we started this off, but don't overthink it. Like, I guess it actually complements what I said because you can always make changes, right? We've made mistakes on packaging, both from a design perspective, but also just like a compliancy perspective. The French wasn't large enough, right? These different things that, that are important from a Canadian packaging perspective, but just go and do it. You don't need to worry about it being perfect necessarily because you can always make changes. Now, yes, you'll save probably more money if you do more research, but when it comes to let's say the creative part of it, what the logo is going to look like, what the placement of the badges are going to look like, all those things can be adjusted and changed, and you just got to get it out there because I've seen like a lot, and I'm sure you have too, when you walk around, your local Sobeys, there's a lot of ugly packaging out there, but the product and the brand sells great. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be the greatest thing. It can resonate in a variety of different ways. But I think that if you like overthink it and spend too much time trying to perfect it, you can miss real opportunities. And it's not hard to make changes after, like even in this moment, like I'm planning on changing, this is an exclusive, but I'm planning on changing this logo. Like I know some things that I personally think are wrong with it and I want to build it to scale up, with or without me in the brand as we grow. But I think just getting it out there, like we have so many versions of our packages out there in the wild, but luckily, those products expire. And so at some point they get recycled and you move on. So I think just really like just going for it and getting it done, but do the research in regards to the compliancy perspective, because those are big mistakes that you can make that would be a waste of money if you just looked into it further, whether it's, your statements on allergens or whether it's, your barcodes or your nutrition panel being compliant with Canada and French. Those things, that information's all out there. We didn't, we worked with kind of a person who was, let's call him a consultant within Venture Park, who helped us understand it a bit more. But we just went to the government website and looked up like what we can claim. Like, is this no added sugar? Is it sugar free? Is it, no refined sugars or sweeteners? Like there's so many ways to say things and it's all readily available. And this was, again, all pre-AI. So it was more of a Google search and a website dive, but now you can probably get it a lot easier.
100%. I mean, now you just, let's say you have like your packaging, the design or whatever that you have, plug that into Claude, plug the government website into Claude, and just tell it to figure it out.
Is this right? Do we have this here? Listen, we spent some pretty decent money translating things to Quebecois French when we started, to AI's support. Now I use Claude and ChatGPT to translate on newer products because it's actually more correct. Like we got Quebecois translators who made mistakes. We printed and it's not like a mistake in the traditional sense. It was very interesting. Like Quebecois French, sometimes it's like what you really mean, right? Like it's not like you translate the word supersede cereal to French, but like what's the purpose of it? Like how are you going to use this product? And sometimes the way that it's supposed to be used changes the French. Like I don't speak French, but that's what I've been told. And so one person might be like, oh no, it's, you say it this way because you eat it by adding milk. And the person's like, oh no, you say it this way because it's like a granola on your yogurt. And that use case changes how it translates. But you can give all that information to AI and they'll give you 3 or 4 outputs and be like, oh, if you want it to be, how people speak socially, this is how it's done. Or if you're going to use it like this is how it's done. So AI really helped for that. We don't use it much for design, except when I'm trying to like validate my own design. So I would like make a design, upload it into, ChatGPT and be like, this is what I designed. What are your thoughts? Where do you see, based on what sells, how it would stand out on a shelf, what people are resonating with based on our target demographic? Is there anything wrong with it? And I ask if there's anything wrong with it because otherwise, what do you like about it? As we know, ChatGPT is like your biggest fan. They're always like, great idea. Best packaging design ever. You're a genius. So I have to ask for like what's wrong with it. And that's how I kind of use AI from a design perspective.
And I guess that democratizes it for newer brands that are coming out that can't afford to spend $5,000 on designers, for example.
Well, it changes the game for sure.
Also, from with the design piece, like the marketing piece, I guess, what have been some levers that you guys have like tried to pull on to like, increase velocity, push more sales once you're already in the stores, basically?
Yeah. So it's hard. It's like the Wild West. Like obviously social media is a big part of it. Although we're like very like tech savvy, or at least I am, I'm not I was never super active on social media as an individual. Like obviously I post photos and videos of my kids. I have other media and content out there as like characters I play, whether it's, the podcast I used to do or characters I've done for different camps and things like that. But like to have the, as we say, the chutzpah to put yourself out there and be like, hey guys, try a product. We have to find the balance for us, but we know that that works, right? So like reaching out to people and trying to get them to talk about us, was super important, still is super important. At the end of the day, we know we have a better, compared to our competitors, and I know all of them well and intimately now because we study all their moves, but we have a better product. I can say this with, again, no ego. Like it's just a better product. We have better branding and packaging and storytelling, and our price is very competitive compared to, competitors. And so now it's just about people knowing that we exist. That's the trickiest part. How do people know that to look for us when you're walking down the aisle? Because we've never, we knew we were never going to be a big, and this is just us, what we think. It may not be the case as we grow, but we didn't think we'd be a very big direct to consumer product because we're 1 or 2 SKUs. We're a pantry item. Most people aren't going to do their shopping for, their oatmeal from the brand directly, right? You're buying it from the grocery store, or you're buying it from like another e-commerce store where you can buy other things, right? Whether it's well.ca or Natura Market or Amazon, you're filling up your cart that way, right? And not necessarily, you're not going to all the brands you like and buying their products. So we didn't expect that to be a big part of it. And so we needed people to know that we existed so that when you're walking down the grocery aisle or you're searching on a website, that we exist. We're still trying to figure that out. Obviously not obviously, but surprisingly, us going and feeding the astronauts in space that we just did gave us huge exposure, because when we got back, all these, we didn't think it was a big deal. We were excited about it and it felt really, really cool. And it was a surreal experience, but we've been trying to get that across the finish line for like almost 2 years now. And we didn't know if it was going to happen, not happen. It's just a long period of time. And
maybe
so
talk us through
yeah,
like what exactly happened there. Cause I know you've spoken about it a bunch in other interviews, but like
yeah,
for someone that doesn't know, but yeah, cause that's
for
incredible.
sure.
Yeah.
So 2 years-ish ago, 2 summers ago, we got an email from the Canadian Space Agency, which, again, in full transparency, I didn't even know there was a Canadian Space Agency. Because you hear about NASA growing up. You hear, the American, that's the dream. That's what you learn about when you're in school in space. And we didn't know if it was real. We didn't know who they were. It could have been a scam. I could have been, sending money to like a Nigerian prince. Like I didn't know what it was. And so we kind of just ignored it. Like it seemed like it was like we get a lot of emails from like consultants like we can get you to this, but this is our fee. And so we ignored it because it didn't seem real. And then we got a second email. Obviously they were persistent, which was nice. And then we're like, okay, maybe like you don't usually get a second email. And so we looked at the signature and it was a real person with a real, Canadian Space Agency logo and direct phone number and fax number and all these things. And so obviously we Googled it, and this person, worked for curating food essentially for the Canadian Space Agency. And so we responded back saying, we're very interested in potentially doing this. What products are you interested in? And they're like, we'll let you know. And so we just started getting like random orders on our website, like direct to them. And it started off by going to like Quebec, which was like where the Canadian Space Agency headquarters are. And then we started getting orders to like, Texas, like Houston, and then Cape Canaveral and where NASA is. And so we had a couple meetings with them as throughout this process, learning more about what they're doing, how they select, what's going on, how much we can promote it, because, it's a government agency and they can't look like they're, favoriting a certain brand or product, because we figured that out by saying, hey, you don't need to order online, we'll just send you a ton, like whenever you need it, like we're happy. And they're like, no, we have to buy it through the proper channels. And after all these different tests that happened, whether it was like nutrition or how it handles microgravity, or does it crumb, does it hydrate well, the last kind of few tests were sending it to the astronauts to see if they actually liked it, because at the end of the day, much like our kids, it can be healthy and it can be quick and convenient, but if it's not tasty, then nobody's going to eat it. And they liked it. They chose the strawberry lavender flavor to go up. And we had the opportunity finally, when the mission came, to be invited guests by the Canadian Space Agency and NASA to fly down to Cape Canaveral and watch this product kind of take off into space. And it was like, I can confidently say there's nothing I've ever done that's similar to this experience or that experience. It was just like, it felt weird, surreal, different. And going back to your last point about, how do we keep the momentum going? Well, that gave us a huge, boost, because when we got back, a lot of the world was really focused on this mission. Artemis II was a huge deal. And again, like, I love space. I've always been interested in it. I didn't know how big this thing was until leading up to it. And when we got back, because we got phone calls from like Global and CP24 and CBC and Ben Mulrooney's podcast. And we got to go on all these things, and lots of them are live. And as I'm sitting there with my phone in my pocket, it's just going ding, 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 and orders are coming in to our website. And so we got more orders in that amount of time than we've ever gotten on our store since inception. Not that it's a gajillion dollars, but just the exposure and the reach of people resonating with the brand and the product, and they got it, was like validating enough. Like, we probably lost money on all the orders because, like, shipping and all these things, we just want it out there. We want it in people's mouths. We want people to know about it. And so we were just happy that people saw us talking about it, and were like, this is something that me, my family, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my grandmother, my kid, whatever it is, they would like. And so that was super, super validating and made it feel like all the work was worth it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Was it initially, did they contact you because maybe you were one of the few Canadian oatmeal companies out there? Was that they wanted to support local? What was their?
Yeah, I mean, I know they had a mandate to, as they always do, to support the Canadian Space Agency, to support Canadian brands. It doesn't have to be local. It doesn't have to be a small brand. It's just a Canadian. They try to get Canadian products on Canadian missions. And I have no idea how many brands might have been in the running. Like, they don't tell you that. I know that we were the only brand that went up, right? So they had a lot of other nutritional items and menu items that were products, but not like a brand first brand. Like, obviously, like, from the American side of it, like, we saw Nutella was up there, right? There's certain brands that were up there, but from a Canadian perspective, there was no like brands going up. And they took the cereal and they ate it in a very like, bare bones kind of way. But if you like it that way, then enjoy it. Yeah. And now we're going, like, our stuff is on the International Space Station, feeding another Canadian astronaut who's going to be taking off soon. Like, we're not going to watch that launch, but like it's a second part of this mission. So it's pretty exciting.
Amazing. And how was that? I'm just curious, like, how was that feeling, like, just being there and like seeing, when Artemis went up in the air, like.
It was, yeah, it was. I can't even explain it because like I want to say that it was loud, but it wasn't loud to your ears. It wasn't like being at a concert and this is too loud. It was more like in your bone, like your spine shook, like you could. So basically it took off, and like 15 seconds after launch you just feel a and like it shakes you inside. And there's nothing no roller coasters, like there's nothing I've ever done that has duplicated that feeling. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty crazy, and like the anticipation was nuts because there's a lot of space. I'm going to call them space nerds, like space people down there who are watching this, who have been planning for this forever. Like we're on this big grassy field with, it's like a VIP area, so to speak, but there's still thousands of people. And it was silent. Like it was kind of scary. Like it felt like a zombie apocalypse movie. Like everyone's just standing like at the edge of the grass where the water goes, and like obviously across the water is the rocket ship, and everyone's just silent and like looking, like their heads are moving like up together as it takes off, and like no one's cheering, no one's like, "Woo, we did it!" Like, yeah, it was just like silent. So it was like cool, but also eerie.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've probably got this question a lot, but was there any feedback other than they've come back and all that, or?
Not, I mean, we don't know yet. We haven't, we've reached out obviously to try to get some feedback, but obviously they're very busy post everything. They have a million things to debrief, and we're just a small piece of this whole puzzle. But my response to when people are like, well, did he like it up there? I can only assume so because he tried it before he left. He must have liked it. And their space, their amount of room they have in there, as I'm sure you saw, is minimal. It's finite. So if you don't like something, especially food, it can't be there, because if the astronauts decide that they're not in the mood for something, or they're not hungry, or they have no appetite, it's very detrimental to their health, right? They have to be healthy, they have to be well fed. And so I'll say, yes, he loved it. He must have loved it. Otherwise, it's not going up there.
100%, 100%. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's proof enough that he loved it. So that's for sure.
Exactly.
I'm guessing like now with that kind of traction, as you mentioned, you're getting a bunch of orders on your website. Is the goal still to kind of channel all that attention to getting consumers to buy at the store, or are you just kind of looking at D2C, direct to consumers?
The thing for us, like D2C is nice, but I really think that our place right now is retail. Like, and it doesn't have to be just in the store, like Instacart, like the Uber, like there's a lot of places that people are grocery shopping. But I think it's important for us to show up for our partners. And our partners are these grocery stores, one of many different types of partners. And we want them to sell well. We want velocity on their shelves. For us, it's nice to sell online and we can track more data, but it's not our core business. It's more, at this point, it's a lot of work for us. Like it's pulling us to doing, back to those days of packing ourselves, making the product. Well, now we're packing it to ship, because we're not really at a point where like a 3PL for individual orders would make sense, at least not yet. But yeah, most importantly, it's all these different kind of grocery banners took a chance by letting us in. And that's the hardest part. And I know that you mentioned like, what's the misconception? A misconception is that it's hard to get into these stores. It's not. Like we've worked hard on many things that led us to the point of getting into these stores, but it wasn't a huge uphill battle. Maybe that's based because of our product, our pricing, like maybe because we had all our shit in line, it made it easier. The hard part is selling it to them more than once. And that's the part that we have to figure out. And it's not easy. And from an advertising marketing perspective, like that's what we try to focus on, and we're bootstrapping it. So we make decisions of like, should we pay for a sampling in the store, or should we order the new boxes that we need? It's not like we have a marketing budget separate from a production budget. Like it's just budget, and the budget is my pocket and Schreiber's pocket, and so we have to make these decisions all the time. But that's the hardest part. I can get anyone to buy anything once. Can we get them to buy it twice?
Definitely, definitely. Because especially, let's say you get into the store, you get into that retail chain, and then let's say it doesn't work out. and
You're
you
done.
get delisted, it's
Yeah.
really tough. Like it's extremely tough to get back in, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and we've been delisted before. Like we've gone through that for not necessarily because it didn't sell well, but other reasons. And it's an uphill battle, and sometimes you only get one chance. Like we've said no to certain stores right now because let's say their listing fees are really really high, right? Which is fine, but if we pay those listing fees, we need to know that we're going to be successful there. So we slow rolled decision making on some great distribution and some great exposure because we're like we need to make sure we're fully ready. We need to make sure that we can, we can provide them with inventory when they sell out. So our next major kind of quote unquote jump is we're going to be in Walmart in August, and that will be our next test of can we handle this? Can we support this and promote this? And we're trying to think of a couple things, but when it comes to like social media and that free exposure by just putting stuff out there, it's still the Wild West and you don't know what's going to hit. So we're just going to keep trying.
definitely. No, man, Carson, this is great. I wanna, because we're ending towards the end of the conversation. I do
Yeah.
want to ask one thing though, because this is a conversation I regularly with a lot of founders. They have an idea and they're looking to bring on a co-founder because they don't have a specific skill set and all that. You went and started something with your best friend. So
Yeah.
I guess what would your advice be for someone that's looking to like pick, a co-founder, partner? Start?
Yeah. I think that you got to be careful. Me and Schreiber both have had businesses and relationships in the past where we jumped into partnerships and it just burned us and didn't work out. And starting this in the age that we're in, maybe I look younger than I am, but I'll be 43 this year. And so I've luckily had the opportunity to learn from my mistakes in the past. But I truly believe having co-founders, partners is essential. The right one, it keeps you motivated. It fulfills the gaps of the skills you don't have. I can say with confidence, and I'm sure Schreiber will love to hear this, but like this company would not exist without him. And it wouldn't exist without me. And if he was on his own, it wouldn't be here. And if I was on my own, it wouldn't be here. We complement each other so well. Luckily, my perfect business partner was there in front of me my whole life. And we've talked about doing other things in the past. We've just never lined up. We've both worked with friends of ours in the past, and that didn't work out. But we always knew that we complemented each other well because we have skills that the other one don't have. Like it's night and day. Like he can't do anything that I can do, and can't do anything he can do. And we both have input and we can have conversations about each other's silos, but because we're smart enough to understand it, but like execute on it, we couldn't do it. And we can be brutally honest with each other. The great thing about a best friend partner, or at least in our case, is that if I don't like an idea or if he doesn't like an idea, we have no problem and no ego to tell each other like to shut the f up or what. Like it doesn't have to be a professional environment when it's just the two of us because we get to where we need to go. And so we often make decisions, even our protein oatmeal, like our protein oatmeal that we launched, thought of it, designed it, created the recipes for it, got it distributed, got into stores in under 6 months because we just moved really quick. We were at a sampling one day. We were looking, it was quiet, it was raining, nobody was coming in. And so we just looked at the shelves for like most of the day and we're like, what's missing? What can we do? And we're like, oh, protein oatmeal, there's nothing here, it makes sense. We started looking up, researching, whatever. He thought of my idea. I'm like, that's stupid, we're not doing that. I'm like, maybe we should do this. He's like, that's dumb, we're not doing that. And we just kept on moving on with no emotion, feelings, or ego, just the goal of finding the best version of that product that we both can agree on. And so yeah, it was risky working with the best friend. I've done it before, it doesn't always work out, but we just both had this like feeling that it could. And so I think for anyone who's doing something on their own, you can do it on your own for sure. But being accountable to somebody else makes you accountable. And even if I'm great at, let's say, creative or design or product creation, having someone saying, okay, we need this by next Thursday because I have to, submit your designs so that we can get it in time, blah, 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 keeps me on schedule, and vice versa for Schreiber. It's nice to have a partner that can hold you accountable and keep you motivated and going because you both feel like you're in it together versus you being by yourself, running with your mind, imagination running in wild in different directions of imposter syndrome or can I do this or am I the only person who thinks this is great? So I think partners are important if they're the right partners. And I'm happy to give up. Sorry, just I was gonna say I'm happy to give up equity for creative ideas because at the end of the day, I rather own like 1% of something that's humongous and amazing than 100% of something that doesn't leave, my mom's basement.
100%. I think the two key things you said there that really resonated was like the ego part. I think the fact that you guys have, kept that aside in a situation like this, and then the second piece is also that you have complementary skill sets. He's he has that strength in distribution. You have the creative design piece locked in. So I think you guys really, gelled well together. And of course, you're best friends, so that also is a huge factor there.
For
Um,
sure.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
man,
an excuse for us to hang out together. That's the best part about all this. Like,
there we
we're
go.
going to Montreal next week. It's a road trip for me and him. It's gonna be
Yeah,
fun. So
yeah, yeah.
it's
That's awesome.
nice.
That's awesome. The Carson, this was great. Really, really, really appreciate you coming on. And
I appreciate it.
just where do you see where is Goldy's at right now with the number of stores they're in, and kind of where do you see
Yeah,
what's
I
the
think we're
target for the
probably in
future?
about like I don't know, 800 stores, 700 stores. I don't know. I don't keep track, but the goal is to keep going. We have more ideas for product lines, product line extensions, new products. Obviously, the US market is in the back of our mind, and we have some plans for that for 2027. That's the goal, but just keep pushing forward until we don't want to anymore.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Last question on the pod that we ask everyone is that if you go back to the first day of Goldie's, and if there was one piece of advice that you would give yourself that would meant that your current business would be literally double of what it's at, what would that one piece of advice that you would give yourself on day one?
Make mistakes faster. I think that's and make mistakes quick, but solutions faster, because we sometimes, again, this is a longer answer for a small question, but we sometimes waited to make a change even though we knew that the change was necessary. And I think if we made these changes quicker, we'd be further along down our journey. So it's okay to make mistakes, I think, but recognize those mistakes as quick as you can and find a solution even faster. So that way you're not wasting time kind of validating whether or not this was the right or wrong choice to do.
Definitely, definitely fail fast, fail forward, or whatever the phrase is.
Exactly. I don't know I make up my own phrases. We do it all the time, me and Schreiber. Like, yeah, as they say, blah 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 blah, and we're like that. No one says that, so I'll do that. I'm sure often.
Carson, again, appreciate you coming on, man. This is great. And kudos to you both. Hopefully, the next time you guys are from 800 to 8,000 stores, we can have you on again and discuss the other lessons.
Absolutely. Or from the moon next time to Mars. We'll see.
To Mars. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. And then we'll have you on with Musk as well together, the three of us, and then he can maybe talk about it.
Listen, the dream's there. I'm ready for it.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Amazing.
Take care, man. Thanks a lot,
brother.
friends.